everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bold and Beautiful. I have a special guest tonight. So excited. My friend, Shenette Osorio-Clark. We went to college together, you guys. So, Shenette, how long ago was that?
Oh, we're telling our age?
Yeah, do we date ourselves?
So you graduated in 92, I graduated in 93.
Yeah.
Over 30 years ago,
Oh,
let's just
that's
say.
right. Oh, 30 years ago. Okay, guys, I graduated 30 years ago. Shenette's a little bit after that. So welcome, 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 Shenette.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Great. So let me tell you about Shenette. Before I do though, look, if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, definitely go do that. Do that right now, or do that after you listen to this podcast. Hit like, hit subscribe. You can find Bold and Beautiful with Kia Cordo at Bold and Beautiful Life. And that's on YouTube. Of course, you'll see that on my social media accounts, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, when I post there. And of course, you can go to my website, which is kiacordo.com. So let's get this conversation started. Last couple of weeks, I was talking about getting rest. And sometimes we definitely need that time to get away, to rest, so that we have clarity for the future. This week, what we're going to talk about with Shenette is overcoming obstacles, overcoming challenges to get to where you want to go, and following your passion. So she's going to share her passion with I Am Godz Gurl. But I want to tell you a little bit about her. Okay, so Shenette Osorio-Clark was born and raised in the Bronx, New York. She earned her bachelor's degree in sociology with a minor in African American studies from State University of New York at Brockport, where we hail from, right? She is a seasoned C-suite executive administrative staff supporting HR and operations for a global insurance broker. In addition to her corporate career, Shenette is an entrepreneur at heart. She is the owner and creator of I Am Godz Gurl, LLC, a brand that embodies, empowers, and promotes positivity for girls and women with Christ. Her passion and motto is always pay it forward. There is a younger you somewhere who needs you. She is an active life member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated of 31 years, where we are both sisters, where she proudly serves her community. She serves on the board of A Woman's Worth Project, an organization that supports women transitioning from incarceration back into society. Shenette resides in Hillsdale, New Jersey with her husband, Charles, and family. So again, welcome, Shenette. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we haven't gotten together in so long, and it was such a pleasure talking with you the other day as we were working on some projects for AKA,
Right.
and our group and reunion and things like that. So I was so glad that we both reached out and connected, because your story is so perfect for Bold and Beautiful for this podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that conversation actually was destined. We didn't even know it at the time, but then when we picked up the phone, and now here we are.
Right. Absolutely. And, it's not like we've known each other for years. We've had Thanksgiving together and Christmas together. And obviously we were roommates.
We were college roommates.
We were college roommates. So my goodness, does it seem that long ago?
That's because we look so wonderful. Old and beautiful.
Exactly. Okay. So tell us, I Am Godz Gurl. Tell me, when did you have the vision for I Am Godz Gurl? How did that get started? What preempted you to say, you know what, I need to step out on my own and take this leap of faith and start my own business?
Okay, so I'm going to start with a little story and hope you don't mind me, because this kind of leads into that.
Excellent.
I probably didn't tell this story. So in 2008, when the market crashed, I was one of those thousands and thousands of people who lost her job. And I'm like, okay, 3 months left, started and got into 6 months, almost 12 months. And I'm like, whoa, this isn't getting any better. I thought a job was going to come right away. And at that time, it didn't. I had to go on unemployment. And while I was counting the time and counting how long I was now out of work, because 6 to 12 to 18 turned into 3 years.
Wow.
And in those 3 years, I literally learned how to truly trust God. Literally.
Right.
And I say that because during that time, I had to figure out how am I going to be able to afford to live, because I was living independently. I had my own apartment. I was living on my own. And I realized this money I'm getting was not going to sustain. And at the same time, I had a car accident and my car was totaled. So I had no wheels to get around. I did not have a job and I was just about losing my apartment. So I was pretty much almost homeless, to say.
Now, were
And
you in the Bronx at that time still, or were you in New Jersey?
I was in New Jersey. I moved
Okay.
to New Jersey in 2001.
Okay.
I moved literally 2 months after 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
And that's my first time moving out, living on my own. I digress. So, and we're in 2008, and one of our sisters said, you know, you can come stay with me. And I said, honestly, I don't know how much I can pay you. I don't know how long I'm going to be without. I just don't know. And she said, we'll figure it out. And that was the test of sisterhood for me.
Right.
And I did. She lived in Jersey, and I went ahead and I moved in with her. And as I said in the beginning, that time frame lasted 3 years.
Wow.
But also in that time frame, I lost my dad. And my dad passed away, and I was like, you know, Lord, I was in the basement of my friend's home, and I was like, God, you know, I felt like Job. I felt like everything's taken, though my body wasn't stricken, I didn't curse him, and I figured out a way. I said, I just have to trust him. And I put myself in a situation where I said, you know what, my situation could be worse.
Right.
And at the time I didn't have any children, and I said, what if I had to care for someone else? Right. What if I had to feed somebody else outside of me? What if? And I did. And every day I said, thank you. And every day I got up, I made lunch, and my friend had a car and she let me use her car. And I would get up and go to my job at Barnes and Noble, because it's a job looking for a job. And I did that every day until, so I could have said, woe is me, what am I going to do? And I just turned my circumstance and tried to find the positivity in everything, because no matter what the situation is, the positivity is, I got up every single day.
That's right.
I got up still with my health, still with my right mind, still had people who loved and cared for me. So I wasn't going to have, and I had a friend tell me this, don't allow yourself to go to any more pity parties. And I didn't. I said, okay, God, I'll let you take hold. But after during that time, actually, I just took a notebook and a pen, and I had at the time never read the Bible in its entirety. And I would take it and just read it and take notes, because it's very hard. It's not an easy book to read. Right. Take the time and just read it and figure it out and write a lot of notes. I would do a lot of journaling. And I started to discover my gifts. I started to discover my talents. That gave me a lot of time. I didn't have a real job to go to. So I found time to figure what I can do. And I would make baskets, and I called it Gigi's Girl. And someone said, oh, they thought I did it for God. And I had named it after my mom. And I said, someone said, I would write little cards, and I would just say, God's Girl, and I would write it. And someone said, that's bigger than that. I'm like, okay. And I wrote an acronym one day. And how I spell God's Girl is GODZ GURL. And I would just make cards and write sayings and say blessings, God's Girl. Yes. And as I mentioned, my dad had passed away, and I was just being creative and making gifts. And when he passed, I received a small inheritance, and I took that inheritance and I invested in my first product, which was a t-shirt that says, I am God's Girl. And from that, I used the scripture, treasure in earthly vessels. And I realized during that time that, my jewelry, my diamonds, my pearls, those weren't the treasures. And the treasure was actually me. And I say that because God truly kept me during that entire time.
Right.
And once I created my shirt, I felt like Urkel. Did I?
Did I do that?
And I was in so much awe. Like I I created this. I
Okay.
developed this. And sure enough, and that's how it started.
Wow.
But when I got to more production of it,
Mhm.
and when I would write stories, I realized, you know what, there's something more to this. And one thing that would bother me is seeing women and girls display themselves
Mhm.
in a way that wasn't becoming of who we are.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Well, let me stop you there for a second. Let's go back just briefly.
okay.
What was your vision once you graduated college? What were you envisioning? What were you happening? What was the plan?
I was going to save the world, actually.
Of course.
I was a social worker. I was a social worker for parenting and pregnant teenagers.
Mm.
That was my first job out of college. And from there, I thought, I'm going to save the world. And it started with young girls, ironically. It's funny I'm having this conversation because I never really thought back to what I did when I first came out. But it was a short-lived career. I realized, this is a lot.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot because, number one, that population is a tough population.
Yeah.
Number one, I look like a young child myself at
Right.
23, 24 years old. Now I'm parenting. In early 90s, there was a large population of young girls that were 13, 14, and 15 years old that were having babies.
Yeah.
Babies having babies.
That's right.
So I worked in a resident facility for pregnant teenagers and, counseling them and helping them adjust to life. So imagine being a 15-year-old
Right.
and someone saying, I want my own budget or case, which was the language used back then, which meant they were ready to take care of themselves, have their own apartment, have their child. And I can't even imagine or fathom. So I wasn't in the field very long, for probably about 2 years. And then I transitioned into insurance, but I transitioned into health insurance, which still gave me the opportunity to speak with people through educating them through their insurance on how to use it. So I was more like an advocate for clients who had insurance.
Okay, excellent. Well, what I want to pinpoint here is that your goal and your dream and what you envisioned was to help people, like you said, to save the world. And God allowed you to go through this, obviously, this situation, and life happens.
Yes.
Some things are completely out of our control. But through that process, he helped you pinpoint the rest of your talents. And I believe that there are so many talents that are that are untapped that we don't even know. I mean, I'm, half a decade old plus a couple more years, but we don't even know what all the things that God has put in us to do. But when those things are apparent, then we can pick them up, and then we can do something with. So out of that situation, out of that, even downtime, like you said, you were able to see some of the details, like that vision coming to life. And you still, I know we were talking the other day, you still have that opportunity and love to work with young people. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but I wanted to take the moment, because this podcast is about understanding who we are in Christ. Who did God create us to be?
Yeah.
And that can mean several different things. It doesn't, God is multifaceted. He created the rainbow, all, to come up when it's supposed to, all those colors. And I think, he's created, looking at nature, God is, he is so intentional and multifaceted. I mean, the Bible tells us that we don't even understand the depths of who he is, and he created us. So we are his creation. So one of the things that I like to point out in this podcast is that, once we understand who we are in Christ, what our identity is, man, God can do so much with us. All we have to do is open our eyes and see it. And I think that changes, or becomes more and more apparent at the older we get, and the different experiences that we have. So I appreciate you sharing that.
And one thing you just said, and it's so funny because someone said this to me the other day about our gifts, and depending where we are in life, he reveals so many gifts. I think there's a tree for each and every one of us that has array of gifts, almost like Christmas, right?
Yes.
There's a tree with a bunch of gifts at Christmas, but these are gifts that are within us,
Yes.
that once we tap into it, we go to that box like, oh, I can create that. Oh,
yeah,
I can write that book. We don't realize how many gifts are there. And sometimes we have to go back and visit the tree.
that's right. And we forget that that's, because life happens so quickly. I mean, we look back and we're like, man, 30 years ago, we were in upstate New York going to college and having fun,
Yep.
and roommates and things like that. That time goes so fast.
Yes.
And you just being able to go back to the tree. I love that analogy. Go back to that tree and say, okay, God, what else is there? What else you got?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And sometimes people forget to go back because they're stuck. Not stuck, but they're on that mission of whatever it is. But we have to remember that let's go back, because I think we're full of many talents.
Oh, yeah, totally. Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. You created this first T-shirt, I Am Godz Gurl, and embodying the message. Help the audience understand, what is the message of I Am Godz Gurl?
Okay, so let me just share so everyone understands who she is. And Godz Gurl is for women. It's for women and girls, because I do get sometimes say, well, what about the guy? And I said, I'm sure there's something out there for them, but that's not the gift God gave me. He gave me the girl. And I am the girl. So I'm going to work with her. So for everyone who's listening and hearing and watching this podcast, I want them to know who she is, because she's me, she's you, she's your granny, she's your mother, she's every little girl that you know, and she's every female that we know and that we don't know. And they may not know that this is who they are, but that's who they are. And she is gifted and talented. She is obedient to his word. She's destined for greatness. She's zealous in spirit. She's generous and gracious. She's uniquely made. She's rich with favor. And most importantly, she lives with purpose. And that's in all of us. But it's almost like the tree. We may not realize all of those qualities that we have, but we all embody that quality. Each and every one of those qualities I just listed. And once we tap into it, each one will come out to realize, yes, we have to own it. We have to own this girl who we are.
Absolutely.
And some people may say, why do you say girl? Because when we grow up, before we're a grown woman, we're a girl.
That's right.
And I say that because as I like to look at God, I'm daddy's little girl.
I love that.
That's who I am. That's who you are. Yes. That's who every little girl and woman is. She's daddy's little girl. She may not know it, but then you have so many women that know. Yeah, that's who I am. And it's important to know who you are and whose you are.
Yes.
And from there, once I created that, I'm like, another Urkel moment. Did I do that?
And the acronym is so powerful.
Yeah. And I just one day just wrote it, and I didn't write it the grammatically correct way, but that's the way God gave me to write it. To write it, my English. That's what it means. And when you live and you make a choice and you make a decision to walk knowing, yes, I am uniquely made. I'm not like anyone else. Everything is unique about us. We all have a unique thumbprint. Our fingerprint is unique. When he made us unique.
Yes.
Not to be like anybody else, but who he called us to be.
Absolutely.
So, he gave you your uniqueness. He gave me my uniqueness.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you said that, because, we live in a time and a day in social media where it threatens that every single day, every time someone picks up their phone, whether they're young or they're older, they see the diet program, they see the exercise program, they see this, I can look this way, this outfit, or this style, or this fashion, or this hair color, or this, constantly, and it doesn't stop. There used to be, before we had phones, we had to figure it out. we had to communicate with people. We had
Yeah.
to be around our family members. We had to be around and just have those kinds of conversations, be around women of note who were doing what we admired and what we aspired to do. And then, but people, all they do is pick up their phone and
They get engrossed. Yeah. They get engrossed.
Totally.
They forget. And, it's just like the church. We need to connect. We need to collaborate. We need to share. We need to unite. We need to find unity amongst girls and women. We need to fellowship. And outside, like you said, the phone. Let's put it down for a minute and just share with one another. And I think it's just an important thing to do, because sometimes, and not sometimes, many times, women are going through things that they feel like they're alone and they don't know. And if we just sit down and do what we're doing right now, just share a story, that woman may feel like, you know what? I understand. So if someone's listening to this, I want them to know that you're not alone.
That's right.
You're not. It's important to know that whatever circumstance you're going through, whatever you're feeling, you're not by yourself.
Absolutely.
I may not know what that unique circumstance is, but someone sharing it, someone understands.
Absolutely. So let's segue to the next thought and obstacles. What challenges or obstacles have you faced since recognizing, you talked about being in a position where you're independent, but then your independence was being threatened and you had to stay, thankfully, had the opportunity to stay with one of our sisters and, kind of get back on your feet and things like that. There were several other obstacles along the way that have sort of tried to get you off track. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yes, I can, I can share an obstacle. I can go back a little bit, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I might share this with you before. Growing up, I went to Catholic school all my life, and from K to 12, and that was what I've known. I've known structure, I've known religion and discipline, and it got to a point where my mom told me when I got to the 11th grade that I could no longer go back. I could no longer go back to my school, where I've had friends since, honestly, kindergarten. Now I'm going back some years,
right?
But this was an obstacle in my life that I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And my mom said I would have to go to public school. And I got bold, just like your podcast says, I got bold. And I told her I'm not going to public school. I was part of a community that I was a part of for almost 13 years, from kindergarten all the way to my last year of high school. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't see myself going somewhere else to start all over, to try to find new friends or make new friends and finish one more year.
Right.
And I told her, I said, I'm not going. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to get a job. And I'm going to graduate from here. Now, to your listening audience, let's give some context. That was 1988. Mm-hmm. And at the time, Catholic school was $1,200.
Right.
I can't recall what the token was. I'm from New York City, so we rode the trains. The token probably was 50 cents. A container of milk might have been $1, if less.
Right.
But $1,200 for someone who was 17 years old was a lot of money at that time. Yeah. And I actually got a job in a shoe store. If you're listening, if you're from New York City, I went to school in the Bronx. I worked at a shoe store in Manhattan, and I got on the train. I did my homework. I worked till 8:00 at night. I got back home on the train. New Yorkers don't get cars very quickly.
Right.
And I made it happen. I never got my report card on time. But in June 1989, I graduated with my friends from my high school, St. Catherine's Academy, and I did it. And what my motivation was, and I know you said what obstacle I had. The obstacle was, how am I going to do it?
Right.
The obstacle was, how am I going to stay when I told my mother big and bold, I'm
I'm
not
not
leaving.
leaving.
I'm not leaving.
I'm not leaving.
And, times were hard. My mom was a
Wow.
single mom. She had, 3 kids. My brother was away at college, and then I'm going into my senior year. And I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay here. And sure enough, I did it. So what it defined for me is I didn't allow someone else's no be my final answer.
Yes.
What she said she couldn't do, my dad said he wouldn't do. My father said, you're going to do it.
Wow.
And I did.
That's it.
And that has been my motivation. At my own life has been my own motivation. I don't have to look at anybody else's life.
Wow.
I literally look at my own life,
Mhm.
and I look at the chapters. We all have chapters in our life. And that's a chapter that's like my hooray, my hurrah, my yay. I did it.
Yes.
I did it. And not like today, I did it. I paid for my prom, I paid for my graduation, and I paid that tuition.
Yeah.
And I went on to college and I did that too. So
The idea, just the level of perseverance, the level of maturity that you set your mind to do, it's difficult to see in many of today's young people. Now, I've been teaching for, oh goodness, this will be my 25th year, going into my 25th year of teaching.
wow.
And I've seen a lot of just a lot of students who are, I've had homeless students. I've had students who are just, I don't care, they has no care attitude. And I've had students who are just, they had such a great desire to do the very best. Very competitive. I mean, I've seen all different things. I've worked with students who have, they're on the verge of going to jail, things like that. And, in alternative education and, getting kicked out all the time, and violence and drugs and et cetera, you name it. But I would say that, I like to share stories with my current students, about how we overcome, like, you today, looks pretty easy. You're pretty privileged. You're pretty,
Right.
you're set up, but not everybody lives like you live. And it's so funny to me when they're like, really, they don't believe me. And I have to give them, real life stories. No, this really happened. And so, but just the tenacity that you had to say, no, mom, I appreciate all that you have done, and you've given me this opportunity, and but I'm going to step it up. I'm going to pitch and step up. I think it would be difficult today for people to take the train in New York City right now. And, and imagine your child taking the train.
Yeah.
Right? It's a different time. It's a different time. A little bit scary, but anyway. So that's powerful. What a powerful story. And I love the part that you said, the scripture tells us that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And that is part of your testimony, that, I was in this situation where it threatened to uproot me. And I said, I don't think so. Delvin, you're a lie. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to trust God to do the rest.
Yep.
So.
And no one knew, actually, like, outside of my mom and my immediate family, not even my immediate family. I don't think my aunts and uncles knew. And my friends, who are still my friends today from elementary school, they was like, I never knew. And sometimes you have to make it till you fake it. You have to fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it.
And I didn't have all the nicest clothes, but I had clothes. And I don't get so caught up in the tangible things. And I know I'm not saying we don't like nice things. We absolutely do.
Right.
But I had to do what I had to do. So I'm sure you have young people who probably feel the same way, and I can relate. Absolutely. And I love to talk to them. I love to share, like, you're not alone. You're not the only one, and you can do it. And what's most important is that we have to encourage, we have to motivate, we have to be cheerleaders for our young people. And we can't lose focus. There was a cheerleader for us. And even if there's not have to learn how to be our own cheerleader.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, like David,
Make
I
that
encourage
pom
myself.
pom, put it in your room, put it in your knapsack,
Right.
put it, draw it on a piece of paper. But we have to learn how to self motivate ourselves.
Right.
And knowing when you have God, you can do that.
Mhm.
You have to be your own cheerleader, and you'll realize there's a lot of cheers going on for you within you.
Yes, absolutely. And God is always cheering us on. He wants us, He created us. He
Yeah,
wants us to win. I
yeah,
heard someone preaching, I was listening to a message the other day on YouTube, and I think it was Jerry Savelle, and he said, look, it's not over until you win. It's not over until you win. That's what God's thought is towards us. He's like,
yep,
I've already won. I've already paid the price.
yep,
And you have this opportunity. Come on, girl. It's not over till you win.
yep.
So I love
And don't give up.
and don't give up. Absolutely. We can't
There's
give
this,
up.
there's this poem that I know, you know, and um, I I have to Google it, the author of the poem, but it's called "Don't Quit."
Don't quit. That's right.
Don't quit.
Mm-hmm.
And I recite it in my head. I share it with other young girls and
That's
women.
right.
Don't quit. When things go wrong, as they
They
sometimes
sometimes
will,
will.
when the road you're trudging seems way uphill,
All will, yes.
when the funds are low and the debt is high, when you want to
Mhm.
smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if
Yes,
you
you
must,
must.
but don't you dare quit.
That's right. That's right. I love, and that was really an important thing that has always stuck with me. So I appreciate that you brought that up, because
Yeah,
some things from our sisterhood that has been a vital, I think, aspect
yeah,
of our lives. And we can look at all of our sorority sisters and say, my
yeah,
goodness, we've done what we set out to do. We're
yes.
doing what we set out to
Yeah.
do. We're in that process. So awesome. Okay, so let's move forward a little bit. I am Godz Gurl. What's the plan? What's your vision? You've had your first t-shirt. You've got a lot, guys, as you're listening, you got to go to Shenette's website, I Am Godz Gurl,
Yes.
and we'll put that on the screen. But tell us what you have. What can we expect? What will people find?
So there's an array of merch, as we use today, lingo
Yeah,
merch. You'll find t-shirts, you'll find fans. So when you're in service, or if you're just on that hot train, or you're going through the pause of menopause, you whip out that Godz Gurl fan and you
that's
fan
right.
yourself on. Um,
I love that.
yeah, I have bracelets and jewelry. So I have this bracelet right here. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes.
Um, and it says "I am Godz Gurl." And this is like my Wonder Woman
Oh, I love that.
little bracelet, and I have that, and caps, and my caps are army fatigue look. So
Yes.
we're at war, right?
That's
We
right.
have to be prepared. Put the full
Yes,
armor, right? Put the
that's
full
right.
armor on, and so I have the caps. Um, I have home decor. I have blankets. Just we want to be wrapped up in God's love. Get
Yeah.
yourself an "I'm Godz Gurl" blanket, and it's so warm and fuzzy. I love it. I'm gonna send you some merch, Kia, so you can be
Awesome.
wrapped up. There's a ton of sites. Go to my website. Can I
Yeah.
share it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. It's www.iamgodzgurl. That's IamGodzGurl.com. Um, yeah, so I do that, and I'm a balloon artist as well with my brand, and I do public speaking. So I love to share this story and share my story, and for any young girl or young person that wants to just chat with me, feel free, send me an email, go on my website.
I love that you stepped out in faith and said, I started with one thing. You didn't have the whole plan or even the whole vision. In fact, I believe, as we spoke the other day, that you said several people came up to you and said, no, this is bigger than what you think. This is
Yeah,
bigger than what you think. So here you're, on one hand, you're cheering yourself on. You're saying you're starting with one thing. So listen, as we begin a journey, just because we don't see the entire picture doesn't mean we don't do anything.
that's
Fear
right.
will keep us like, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to sell. I don't know if it's going to look good. I don't know, I don't know if it's going to
Yep.
sound right, all those things, but just step out in faith and do it. And so I appreciate that. You've got your one shirt. I've got the apron that says
Yeah.
I'm Godz Gurl, and you have So you have cards, you have apron, you have all this merchandise, and
Yeah.
it has grown. But you're also doing something else. You're speaking with young people. So tell us just a little bit about that before we end.
Yeah, I have, when I have the opportunity, I had the opportunity to speak at one of the high schools in Newark, New Jersey, and it was the entire freshman class. And I focused on purpose. And, we wake up every day like, what is it? What's my plan for today? What is it? And you know what? We all have a purpose. And this is what I share with the young people. We all have a purpose. We may not know what that is, but that doesn't mean we don't have one. And, we go back to that tree. There's several gifts for us under that tree. And we just have to know to move forward in our purpose once we know. And for me, I didn't know. I didn't know what my purpose was. Like I said, I wanted to save the world, but there was a purpose that God created all of these gifts in me to put them for use. They weren't for me. Right. Any gift that we have, it's not for us. Any story that I have, it's not for me. My story is to share for someone else to say, aha, you're right. I can do it. If she can do it, I can do it. Yes. And that's what I want people to understand, that we have that purpose. And I've gotten to the point where my purpose is to pay it forward. I believe in that. I believe that there's a younger you looking for you.
Yes.
And it may not necessarily be a younger girl. It may be just a person who just wasn't exposed, who just didn't have the access, who just didn't know. Right. And sharing that story will give them the opportunity to say, oh, and that's my goal, to share whoever it is. My husband may say, you talk to anybody. I sure do.
Yes, you do. Yes,
I sure do. You never know. You never know what someone's waking up to. When you see that kid, like you said, you're in a classroom with kids, you don't know what they had to do to get to that classroom that day. You don't know what environment they left from their home. You don't know what they embody walking on the street to get where they had to get. So I think it's really important that, people always say, you always have a smile on your face. Yeah. Because sometimes that, hey, good morning. How you doing today? You look so pretty. Right. Oh my God, your hair looks so nice. It's good to see you. That goes a long way. So I think it's important to pay it forward. It's important to share and constantly do it. So I do it on a daily basis. Getting on the bus. I take the bus into New York, every few days out of the week. To the bus driver. They're not just there to just ride the bus. Good morning. Sharing pleasantries. And, once you begin to do it, others will begin to pick it up. It's just like customer service. Right. If you're calling customer service, you can have an angry person calling. You don't elevate and escalate. Right. You downsize. I'm sorry you're going through that. Share that love, share that compassion, and let people know that we care. There's that purpose. So for me, I believe that's the purpose I have, to share my story and snippets. So the few stories that I shared, losing my job, my family, starting Godz Gurl, paying my own tuition at the age of 17. There's more. So like I shared with you the other day, I'm starting the book.
That's so exciting. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so excited for what you're doing, what you've done, what you've accomplished in your lifetime. But there's so much more. And so it'll be exciting to see the rest of the story. So looking forward to that book. We'll be praying for you. Look, I'm so glad y'all have joined us for our conversation, our dialogue. I am Godz Gurl. I am godzgurl.com, correct?
Correct. I am godzgurl.com. IamGodz.com. Yes.
Excellent. You can get in touch with Shenette Osorio-Clark and find out how she can bless you, or go to her website, get some merchandise. I want to just say this one last thing about your business, and the message of I Am Godz Gurl is that when we're alone, when we, the noises is gone, when the house is quiet, when you're, maybe before you get ready to go to bed, we need that affirmation to say, I belong to somebody.
That's right.
I have my identity in Christ is so much bigger and so much larger and so much magnificent than what I'm seeing in the mirror.
Absolutely.
Not about the outside, it's about what's on the inside. And we need that affirmation. So I appreciate you starting I Am Godz Gurl, because we need to know that we are God's girls.
Yeah.
We need to know that every single day. And I'm telling you, like you said, that camouflage with we're in a war. It's a war for our identity. It's a war for what we can accomplish. Doesn't matter where you're from. Doesn't matter where you came from, how you got to where you are right now. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. God will take you right where you are and say, okay, let's go. We got work to do. We've got territory to gain. We're going somewhere. And so grab yourself. You're cooking all the time and you're only grab yourself an apron. If you're just settled in with your thoughts late at night, grab yourself an I Am Godz Gurl blanket, because wrap yourself up in that affirmation and be empowered to do what God has called you to do. So I'm excited. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining this episode of Bold and Beautiful. Shenette, thank you so much for being here. It's so good to see you. It's so good to talk to you and be able to share your story. So looking forward to the next chapter.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good being here.
You're welcome. Look, guys, if you have not liked and subscribed yet, make sure you go onto my YouTube channel. I will put up Shenette's website and her information for I Am Godz Gurl so that you have the access to that as well. Come on, share it with somebody. Share her story on your social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, on X, on LinkedIn. She's got some excellent things for you to tap into just in the message. So we appreciate you. Thank you. Look, go out there and be bold and beautiful, because God's got you.
Yes.
Okay.